There we go.
Got it. I just wanted to mention that last night, well, back up a step, we have a house full of girls.
Hmm.
Sophia, who's 22, has four of her friends over.
Okay.
So we yielded the house last night and went out to see a movie.
Hmm.
And we saw Belfast by Kenneth Branagh. And it's full of sweet scenes of Belfast and told through the eyes of a young boy. And it's in black and white and filled with Van Morrison songs. So it
Oh,
was a,
sounds good.
yeah, a sweet time that brought us a little closer to
Yeah.
Ireland.
Nice.
So meanwhile, here we are on
Yes.
chapter 44. Am I right?
You are correct. The final chapter.
Of this text with found meditation as the primary means for obtaining the grace of the Supreme Shiva.
Extolling the greatness of this text. You cut off for a second. I didn't hear. All I heard was this text.
Oh,
So, for the
yeah.
record, extolling the greatness of this text.
Yeah, again, there's a fair amount of repetition here, but what both of them are doing is by declaring this I am, they're practicing the certainty that we've
Mm,
been talking about for 43
mm,
chapters now.
yeah. Someone said something to me once. They said, when you hear the words of a guru or a master, it, it's kind of, I don't know now what way they said it, but they said something like it's pushing you back to where those words came from.
Mm, beautiful.
So it is like that, like to just listen to words like this. It's really putting you into that place. It's not putting you into that place, but it's letting you recognize that you're in that place and that you are that place, but bringing your attention to it,
Mm.
which seems to be important.
So who should start? Would you like to start reading or should I?
I'll start reading, if that's
Very
okay.
good.
For the benefit of all, for all time, the Immaculate Sage Ribhu continued further, affectionately addressing Nadaga, who had received the undivided supreme knowledge without a second, and who had thus become instantly rid of all the bondage of attachment by the Guru's exhortation, and who was enjoying pure supreme bliss. Would you like to take it a verse each?
Sure. Son, you have achieved your goal by attaining the highest undivided knowledge, with all the impressions of the world effaced, and thus having reached the state of liberation while yet alive, replete with non dual bliss. Listen now to the method by which all the intelligent seekers in this world after liberation daily and assiduously practice meditation in complete concentration until the cascading compassion of the Supreme Shiva touches you.
I, indeed, am of the nature of imperishable existence. I, indeed, am of the nature of blemishless consciousness. I, indeed, am of the nature of the mass of bliss. I, indeed, am of the nature of the one undivided essence. I, indeed, am of the nature of the undivided supreme self. I, indeed, am of the nature of the blemishless supreme Shiva. I, indeed, am the undivided supreme Shiva. Thus, steadfastly, one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the attributeless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the blemishless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the partless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the actionless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the motionless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the taintless. I indeed am of am, I indeed am the all-pervasive supreme Brahman. Thus, steadfastly, should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the afflictionless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the veilingless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the intersticeless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the all-pervasive. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the fearless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the unsurpassed. I indeed am this peerless supreme Brahman. Thus steadfastly should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the eternal. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the unmoving. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the truth. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the unwavering. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the non-dual. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, without a thing apart. I indeed am the supreme Brahman. Thus, steadfastly, should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the indestructible. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the ageless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the bondageless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the indivisible. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the permanent. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the non-attached. I indeed am the dear supreme Brahman. Thus steadfastly should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is all. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is none of all. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is defectless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the one absolute. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the mass of bliss. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the pure absolute. I indeed am the blemishless supreme Brahman. Thus, steadfastly should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is all truth. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the eternally blissful. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is all consciousness. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is the space of consciousness. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is all goodness. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, which is myself. I indeed am the blemishless supreme Brahman. Thus steadfastly should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
I indeed am of the nature of the supreme Brahman, the eternal. I indeed am of the nature of the supreme Brahman, the pure. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the knowledge. I, indeed, am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, liberation. I, indeed, am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the unmoving. I, indeed, am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the mind. I, indeed, am the blemishless Supreme Brahman. Thus, steadfastly should one constantly, profoundly meditate.
What avails a variety of expressions? It is only to those who, in adherence to the axioms of the great aphorisms of Vedanta, continuously meditate with love, without confusion, for a considerable period, that I am ever the undivided Supreme Brahman, and that undivided Supreme Brahman is myself, without any notions of differentiation, that the rare compassion of the Supreme Shiva will flow, and the blissful Supreme knowledge, the awareness, will result.
Therefore, with all assiduousness, all seekers after liberation should learn in due manner in the presence of the Guru the definition of the originless, undivided meaning of the great aphorisms of the crest of the Vedas. Reflect on them, continuously meditate on them, uninterruptedly, and by the helpful grace of Shiva attain undivided knowledge, and thereby abide in the bliss of liberation.
If the disciple who has duly imbibed the undivided knowledge in the presence of the Guru does not worship the Guru due to intense greed, though possessed of wealth and such, he will be inescapably consigned to the gruesome hell and others. Hence, the Master should be worshipped daily with offerings, body and soul.
Thus I have lovingly told you, blemishless Nadaga, the limitless, undivided supreme Shiva knowledge, in the manner the embodiment of grace the Lord brought forth for the benefit of all. Those who listen to it in the manner explained and attain this undivided knowledge that destroys all bondage will be instantly rid of all shackles such as thought and others, and become the undivided Supreme Shiva, all consciousness.
Hearing the exhortation of the Guru in this manner, the exalted Nadaga eulogized him and, abounding with love, offered home and family and all to the Guru, and also himself as a son, besides all other wealth, grain, and all other articles, offered in love with the pouring of a libation of water to consummate that offering, and then poured forth paeans of praise thus.
Glory to you, my Sadguru, true Guru, who has, with natural ease, carried me across the originless ocean of the sorrow of worldly existence in which I was submerged, by the ferry of knowledge to the far shore of the immemorial Supreme Brahman. Glory to you, my Guru, who has inspired me, submerged in several severe sorrows, thinking that I am the perishable body, into realizing that I am the afflictionless Supreme Brahman, and conferred undivided bliss on me.
Glory to you, my Sadguru, who has taught me that all is the undivided Supreme Brahman, and that I am, and removed all doubt, such as this world is real and I am insentient. Glory to you, my Sadguru, who has, by conferring the worthy, undivided, supreme knowledge on me, long submerged in illusion, and in the whirl of thought that the erroneous path of action would enable me to reach the goal, made me verily that itself.
Glory to the Guru of the nature of the undivided Absolute, who has appeared as an embodiment of grace and who has taken me into your grace. Glory to the eminently fitted to be the rare refuge in all the varieties of worlds. Glory to the Guru, who is blemishless, partless, peerless, and pervasive without a pause. Glory to the Guru, who is the supreme Shiva, the higher than the highest, the supreme self, the supreme Brahman.
Glory to you, Sadguru, true Guru, the blemishless, shining as the originless, undivided nature manifest. Glory to you, Sadguru, true Guru, the taintless, undivided, supreme knowledge. Glory to you, Supreme Guru, who, transcending the taintless knowledge, tower as the changeless. Glory to you, Supreme Guru, the realized, the equanimous, the totally non attached.
Glory to the Guru, who is a mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. Glory to the Supreme Guru, the motionless, the peaceful. Glory to the Guru, the eternal, the attributeless. Glory to the Supreme Guru, the taintless. Glory to the Guru, the pure, infinite expanse. Glory to the Supreme Guru, pervasive as that which is subtle. Glory to the Guru, the perfectly full and non-dual. Glory to the Supreme Guru, the undivided.
The Guru then addressed the sage Nidagha, who had thus surrendered all as Guru Dakshina, offering to the Guru, and engaged himself in matchless service, while expressing his eulogies in humble, unwavering devotion. I am highly pleased because you have been spontaneous with your services. My son, there is nothing left for you to do. You are indeed blessed.
Son, you have attained intense, steadfast, complete knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, with all the illusory woe of the wearisome worldly existence eliminated. You have become the Supreme Brahman consciousness bliss. Though this is true, pursue the I am Brahman certitude ardently and pauselessly every day, and abide in your natural state until you attain Vidaha Mukti, disembodied liberation.
Anything apart from total, intense I am Brahman certitude does not contribute to liberation. It is the intense I am Brahman certitude alone that is the cause of the supreme, undivided liberation. Only for those who devotedly practice the total, intense I am Brahman certitude day after day does the rare state of liberation result easily by that total, intense I am Brahman certitude.
Only the differenceless I am Brahman certitude will confer undifferentiated, undivided, supreme liberation. There is no doubt of this. It is verily the truth. In the name of both feet of Shiva, this is the truth, indeed. Hence, by beneficially resorting daily to the I am Brahman certitude as described, all seekers after liberation should realize the undivided truth and thereby attain liberation.
There is nothing except this treatise, specified for obtaining the changeless, steadfast I am Brahman certitude. That is the means for defectless, undivided, supreme liberation. Is there anything to compare with this treatise, personally propounded by the Supreme Shiva directly in front of me? This treatise is, indeed, the essence of all the widespread works in all the multiplicity of worlds.
This, indeed, is the good essence of all kinds of Vedas. This, indeed, is the good essence of the crest of all the Vedas. This, indeed, is the essence of a variety of treatises. This, indeed, is the essence of all the epics. This, indeed, is the essence of all the variety of Guru's grace. This, indeed, is the essence of all japas, mantra repetition, and tapas, intense spiritual practice. This, indeed, is the essence of all varieties of worlds. This, indeed, is the great essence of all things.
This, indeed, is the liberation from all kinds of births. This, indeed, is the liberation that is easy for all. This, indeed, is the liberation that is painless in all ways. This, indeed, is the liberation that is ever blissful. This, indeed, is the liberation that transcends senses of all kinds. This, indeed, is the liberation that is ever complete. This, indeed, is the liberation that is the essence of all. This, indeed, is the liberation that is ever sovereign.
This, indeed, is the liberation of becoming consciousness alone by listening and such. This, indeed, this is indeed the liberation of becoming that alone by eschewing the undulating mental misconceptions of the wide world. This is, indeed, the liberation of existing without attributes by rejecting the phenomenal world. This is, indeed, the liberation that is the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss, inspired by indifference to all the moving and unmoving.
For the benefit of all, and in the manner expounded in compassion by the divine, auspicious form of the Lord, I have thus explained this great treatise for the attentive Sukha and other great sages, keeping you as the reason, so that it sinks into their thoughts. All these who have listened to it thus have become that itself by the undivided supreme knowledge.
As Ribhu made this majestic declaration, addressing all, Nadaga, with unconcealed joy, was bathed in an ocean of bliss. Hearing the beautiful Ribhu Nadaga conversation, Sukha and other sages, attaining the realization of the supreme Brahman that is free of bondage to the body, became of the nature of that supreme Brahman without bondage.
And that goes in the last verse when it says, all these who have listened to it thus. It's like everyone who has listened to it in the history of time. Isn't it? Doesn't matter what the number of the year is. It doesn't matter what the voice sounded like. Reading. It's like it's the essence of the words. Like it said in another verse, like this is the essence of everything. So it doesn't matter that it seems to come from a mouth that maybe looks different than you would imagine Ribhu and Nadaga to be. They're still from that same essence. Then All the great sages, bowing in joy and affection to sage Ribhu, said, Bondageless, supreme Guru, what shall we say of your compassion that has conferred on us the limitless, undivided, supreme bliss by teaching us today about the ocean of undivided knowledge in the manner expounded by the Supreme Shiva in his compassion?
Changeless Master, you have taken us, who have taken refuge in your feet, into your grace, ferrying us across the ocean of originless ignorance and worldly sorrow, in the boat of instruction in Brahman knowledge, to attain supreme bliss on the shores of the Supreme Brahman, and protecting us from further onslaughts of the misery of mundane existence.
Hence, you are indeed the father, indeed the mother. You are indeed all the wonderful relatives there may be. You are the helpful good Guru. You are indeed the friend. You are all. Praising and bowing thus with cool minds, the scorching mundane misery quenched and in a state of pure consciousness, they revelled unperturbed in the ocean of undivided, originless, endless bliss.
Sage Ribhu, having elevated Nadaga and other sages to the nature of the Absolute by his discourse to them on the systematic teaching that he obtained by the compassion of the Lord on Mount Kailas, remained in endless bliss. Likewise, I, Skanda, have graced you, Jagishavya, with this. Now I shall proceed to grace you with the subtleties of the various aspects of this knowledge. Listen.
All the individuals in this world, created in the world as Brahmins and others, should, to begin with, perform actions prescribed in the Vedas. While they do so as laid down in the crest of the Vedas, they should always wear the divine ash as prescribed, without any uncertainty. There should not be the slightest indifference about this.
Having smeared well all the limbs with ashes, and similarly wearing the triple stripe, and adorning the head and other parts with circlets of holy berries, Rudraksha, as prescribed, great sage, they should, reciting the Rudra, hymn to Rudra, and Panchaksara, 5-syllable mantra to Shiva, and other exalted mantras, properly worship the manifest great linga, the monolithic symbol of Shiva, daily.
Just like the worship of the Lord, worship of the devotees should also be zealously performed every day, so long as the body lasts. They should reside in a renowned holy Shaivite pertaining to Shiva center, and tirelessly ever sing the pure name of Shiva, and also contemplate upon the highly exalted form of Shiva in the company of his consort.
Those who should also render service or do such other action unfailingly as laid down, and taking recourse to the wearing of the pure ashes, reside always unwearied Vite spot.
As all the people in the world have the right to wear the worthy ashes, ceaselessly wear the Rudraksha, sing the hallowed name of Shiva, meditate upon the great Lord, and stay in a sacred spot free of constraints. All the seekers after liberation in this world should duly perform the actions prescribed here.
Venerable sage, all these aforesaid actions may be called the great adjuncts to knowledge. Only those who resort to listening and such, in addition to these adjuncts, shall attain by the grace of the Supreme Shiva the undivided knowledge without beginning or end, and thereby, rid of their ignorance and the originless, fearsome bondage of worldly existence, abide as the nature of the indivisible Supreme Brahman.
What do you think for all of us who don't have the opportunity to smear ourselves with holy ashes and wear rudrakshas and sing praises to the Shiva lingam? What
Well,
do you think for us?
these seem like actions that you take on retreat. Yeah, like if you're in a community, great,
Mm, mhm,
off you go. If you're not, then it just seems like part of a really pleasant invitation to
mm,
sort of retreat somehow and
mm,
spend time alone quietly.
And also very like Indian culture. And not just
Yeah.
Indian, because I don't think Indians in this century, it's the year 2022. I don't think most people would be smearing themselves with holy ashes. But I think you could translate it anyway. Like you said, just like to be alone, and really it's just that I am Brahmin certitude. But like what it was coming to me was like I think you can do all the actions, in the beginning. At least, and maybe not just in the beginning, but all the whatever actions you know about in your culture. So in our culture, it's kind of like meditate, isn't it? Take time to sit quietly. And really they're all doing things and it really doesn't have to look like that. So it's not really about how it looks on the outside. It's not about the action, so it might look like smearing yourself with ashes. It might look like sitting meditating, or it might look like going on retreat, but it might not. It might look like just washing the dishes because
Mm.
nobody knows what's going on inside your heart. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like on the outside. It's more about your um it's not really a state of mind or a state of heart, but it's more about your, maybe you could say, a state of heart. Like your kind of, it's not, I don't think it's really the right words and I don't know what they are, but you could say the intention of your heart. But it's not even an intention, it's just like the love of your heart is devoted to the truth, and just in each and every moment that we can, that we have, that are conscious enough to be like that. That's what it will look like in our life. So it doesn't really matter. Like every single culture is different. So even probably Irish culture is different than American culture, so it will look different. And obviously, it's not just about the culture, it's also each individual person, and person's life is different. So I'm just clarifying that for my own mind, I think.
No, it's beautiful. Because, if taken literally, then it sort of makes the teachings here a little bit out of reach.
Yeah. And it's not
Whereas
meant for
you're
that, it's for
underlining that
everybody.
this is,
Exactly.
there you go.
Yeah. It's for everybody who hears it. Venerable sage. Are we on verse 40
I
or
think,
39 or 40 or 41?
uh,
Lost.
it's 39, I think.
Okay. As all the people in the world have the right to wear the worthy ashes, ceaselessly wear the Rudraksha, sing the hallowed name of Shiva, meditate upon the great Lord, and stay in a sacred spot free of constraints. All the seekers after liberation in this world should duly perform the actions prescribed here.
So the sacred spot could be in front of the dishwasher, with
Yeah.
glasses and plates.
Taking out your bins.
There you go. Venerable sage, all these aforesaid actions may be called the great adjuncts to knowledge. Only those who resort to listening and such, in addition to these adjuncts, shall attain, by the grace of the Supreme Shiva, the undivided knowledge without beginning or end, and thereby rid of their ignorance and the originless, fearsome bondage of worldly existence, abide as the nature of the indivisible, supreme Brahman.
Only those who wear the triple stripes of ashes acquire the unquestioned authority for inquiring into Vedanta. Others will not become so authorized. The crest of the Vedas proclaims so. Is there any canon contrary to the dictum of the Vedas? Hence, one should acquire the said authority and then embark on the inquiry into the undivided absolute.
Rare sage. Though one be a steadfast recluse, well trained in tranquillity, control of the senses, and such, but without wearing all over his limbs the holy ashes, he cannot become eligible for inquiry and this investigation, even if he takes to such inquiry, being without the grace of the supreme Shiva. He will not attain uninterrupted knowledge of the supreme Brahman. What is said is definite. There's no doubt of this.
What avails a surfeit of statements? Only those who conform to the adjuncts of knowledge as aforesaid and unwaveringly inquire into this treatise will attain the steady knowledge of this treatise emanating from Sambhu, the bestower of happiness, and thereby attaining such knowledge, attain undivided bliss, and become the undivided absolute. Thus Shanmuka expounded to Jagi Shavya this incomparable treatise.
Sutta, following in the same vein, graced all the great sages with the narration of this treatise. Listening to this eminent treatise and steadfast in the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, filled with consciousness and enjoying divine bliss, all those sages in steadfast commitment turned to the Guru with undiminishing love and praising him in all humility, became that itself and reveled in their natural state.
The exalted sage Sutta, explaining this treatise on the undifferentiated to all the sages in this manner, made them all embodiments of the differenceless Supreme Brahman, and turning to the mass of knowledge, the Supreme Shiva, with perfectly full love, and eulogizing him in all humility, abided in the undivided, beginningless, endless ocean of bliss.
This treatise will drive out all illusory differences. This treatise will turn one into the taintless Supreme Brahman. This treatise will confer the fearless state. This treatise will usher in unsurpassed bliss. The number of stanzas in this wonderful treatise is 1,964. All seekers after liberation should discard all manner of works and ardently turn to this treatise.
Obeisance to the twin feet of the great sage Sutta, who has narrated this treatise. Obeisance to the twin feet of Vyasa, who faultlessly explained this to him. Obeisance to the twin feet of the great exalted sage Jagishavya, who raised this topic. Obeisance to the twin feet of Shanmuka, who expounded and explained all this to that sage.
Obeisance to the felicitous feet of the Mother, who, in all grace, taught this to him. Obeisance to the feet of the blemishless Nadaga and all exalted sages who responded with queries. Obeisance to the feet of the matchless sage Ribhu, who dispelled their dark with his exposition. Obeisance to the feet of the supreme Shiva, higher than the highest, who, in his
You cut out for the last sentence. Would you read it again?
obeisance to the feet of the supreme Shiva, higher than the highest, who, in his love, taught him, Ribhu, all this.
Glory to the supreme nature, which is the substratum of all. Glory to the non-dual nature, which is devoid of all. Glory to the supreme nature, which is the blemishless fourth state. Glory to the supreme nature, which transcends the fourth state. Glory to the supreme nature, which is undivided, untouched by eye. Glory to the supreme nature, which is not different from the self. Glory to the supreme nature, which is unparalleled. Glory to the supreme nature, which is all pervasive.
Glory to the supreme nature, which is a mass of truth, knowledge, bliss. Glory to the supreme nature, which is changeless. Glory to the supreme nature, which is the void, the knowledge of that. Glory to the supreme nature, which stands alone, full of that itself. Glory to the supreme nature, which is motionless as a rock. Glory to the supreme nature, which is taintless and partless. Glory to the supreme nature, which is ever without a second. Glory to the supreme nature, which is the mighty one, the supreme Brahman.
Glory to the supreme nature, which is truth, knowledge, bliss. Glory to the supreme nature, which is complete and perfectly full. Glory to the supreme nature, which is eternal knowledge, bliss. Glory to the supreme nature, which is taintless, attributeless. Glory to the supreme nature, which is without a trace of duality. Glory to the supreme nature, which is one expanse of consciousness. Glory to the supreme nature, which is non-dual. Glory to the supreme nature, which is the undivided.
I just wanted to hesitate at this moment before we read the last verse of the last. We should almost read this out loud together, but it is the infinite form of our Lord of Ambika in the state of joyous dance that, to start with, explains that by courageous, concentrated, profound meditation as conveyed by the caring guide. Those with the good grace of the Lord can attain liberation, and concludes by extolling the exquisite grandeur of this exalted treatise.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, there's just so much love and devotion welling up. It's really, really, really beautiful. I'm deeply, deeply grateful.
Thank you so much
And yeah,
for sharing all of these verses and being in devotion to Ribhu, Nadaga, all the words, all the sages mentioned.
so the introduction tells us that we don't really know how old this treatise really is.
It's a bit like the world, like Eshan asks me sometimes, like, when was the first person? When did the first person appear in the world? I'm like, nobody really knows them things. It's like people try to know and they sometimes think they know, but nobody really knows. So maybe this is like this. It's just, it's a part and parcel of the world. I think that, like, for me, that's enough.
Yeah.
For some people, it's not enough, you know. That it
Yeah, I'm
exists
just
now is enough, isn't it?
yeah.
Stories are nice as well. Some stories.
Mm. Yeah, this is a whopper.
Some different era, anyway, that's for sure. When
Mm.
like Shiva appeared on the mountains and all this kind of magical stuff happened, you
Yeah.
know, like all the stories in the Mahabharata. Well, it seems like a totally different kind of time. I like to take all those things as fact rather than fiction, like they really happened. But it was just like everything was totally different then, you know, so there can be even different laws of nature and things like that. Because like people
Mm.
can fly and them stories and things like that. Because I was reading some kind of Krishna book. And when you just read it and you're trying to understand it, you know, and think, well, what does it mean? Like when they say this, what does it mean? That's very hard way to read it. But if you just read it like a child, you know, like everything they're saying, you just take it at face value. Don't try to understand anything. Then the meaning just imparts by itself. I feel, and whatever you're meant to get from it, you will. You don't need to try to understand it or work it out. It's very pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I like to read spiritual texts anyway.
Yeah, you're saying, there's no need to engage this meaning making mechanism. It's just,
Yeah,
let it in.
exactly. And especially like that's the whole point of all kinds of spiritual texts. It's to undo that part of our minds. And it's saying over and over again that it doesn't serve us. And I think these texts do that anyway. You know, they kind of switch off, even if it's on sometimes, at least when you're reading them or hearing them. It's ideally switched off or it switches it off and because it totally brings us into the heart space.
Well, um, Amba's voice has been a vehicle for that, so very good.
And your voice also.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
I intend to keep using it for a while, so
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Yes.
so there is one more salutations. I don't know if you turn your page, do you see a section called salutations to Sage Ribhu?
I do.
So maybe next time we just celebrate by doing the 108, the 108
I would love that.
statements. Maybe do that. Yeah, right on. And then after that, if it's right, then maybe we do a podcast in the form that you've already laid down
Mhm.
so nicely. I've listened to a few. I've listened
Oh,
to a few. It's nice. Yeah, way to go.
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing at all. I don't know what's going on. But I'm
Do
open to
you?
any feedback. I don't even know why I'm doing it or what it is. I'm like I'm not able to think about it, but somehow my mind wants to think about it sometimes, but like it's not really able to.
Okay.
So I don't know
Okay.
how it's going. We'll just see how it goes.
That seems to be the right way to continue to approach
Yeah,
them. So, what I'd like to do is just formulate a couple three questions for you, but not as a way to structure the whole thing. Um,
yeah,
what?
anything, whatever happens is fine with me.
Okay, yeah, and I would, like to acknowledge that, what we've completed
Yeah,
is effectively a body of work that, is there now
yeah,
for, anyone anywhere to take some value from.
yeah. Yeah.
And the thought came to share this last chapter's recording with Nome. So I'll make sure that my friends at the Sa Temple and him get a link
Mm,
to this session.
that would be nice. Mhm. So until next time. Mhm.
See you soon. Love you.
Bye. You too.